Hello everyone, this is G and I'm back with another video. So I just wanted to give my thoughts. Well, first of all, before I do all of that, I hope everybody's doing well. It's about 11:30 here in New York City. It's Friday, so hoping everybody's alright wherever you are and whatever you're doing. So I just wanted to give my thoughts on the Abby Sex Scene from The Last of Us 2. I just saw it, so I just want to give my thoughts, and I wanted to address two things. One, Neil Druckmann, and two, the difference between sexualization and objectification. So, well, I guess it's three things. The scene, Druckmann, and then the difference between sexualization and objectification, at least from my point of view. So, the scene itself. I will admit, I don't have much context for it. The scene itself isn't really all that long. It just seems that Abby and this man named Owen, who some are saying is basically a stand-in for Neil Druckmann, are having an argument. Owen grabs her ponytail, and then, how do I put this without being too graphic? One minute he's grabbing her ponytail, the next minute they're kissing and undressing, and then after that, she's bent over a table. More or less, if you get what I mean. So the scene itself was actually, at least in my opinion, quite tame compared to what I was seeing and hearing online, and especially in my opinion in comparison to what BioWare has done. BioWare is known for putting, at least in my opinion, fairly graphic sex scenes in their games. Of course, there's Dragon Age. I'm most familiar with it through Mass Effect, and in particular, Mass Effect Andromeda. I never played the game myself, but I did watch a lot of cutscenes. I saw the more graphic sex scenes, and honestly, in my opinion, the sex scenes in Andromeda really should have been labeled as like softcore porn, in my own personal opinion. I'm surprised the game didn't get an AO rating for, say, the Jaw Sarah Rider scene, or the one between the male writer and what's her name, Cora, the chick with the weird haircut. I thought, in my personal opinion, I thought those scenes were more in line for what some would see on a certain website for adults only, a certain hub, if you will. Let's just put it that way. Right, so, but here's the thing. I am not opposed to a sex scene in an adult game, right? I've, again, played Mass Effect. There was an implied sex scene in it, and I think Metal Gear Solid 3 at the very end, between Snake and, what was her name, Eva? So again, it's nothing new for a video game, it's nothing new for adult content to feature sex or to have a either explicit or implicit or implied sex scene. So I have no issue with it in that regard. And again, compared to some of the things I've seen in video games, in particular from BioWare, I found this actually to be quite tame. Right, so as a scene itself, out of context, I have no issue with it. I'm a grown woman, doesn't bother me. What does bother me is point 2, which is Neil Druckmann, right? Neil Druckmann made it quite clear that he was greatly influenced by Anita Sarkeesian of Feminist Frequency, and he was influenced by her Tropes vs. Women series, and that he was influenced by her work in general, and that he did not want to sexualize female characters in video games, and that he realized he had been doing this in his work, and so he was going to move away from all that. Well, here's my question for Mr. Neil Druckmann here, right? How can you claim that you don't want to sexualize your female characters in appearance, right? Okay, I can understand that, not wanting to sexualize a female character's appearance if it's not necessary, if it does nothing, you know, to help explain the character or give any sort of information about it. I can understand that. Okay, but how can you say you don't want to sexualize your female characters, but then feature a female character in a sex scene? Not only just in a sex scene, but in a sex scene where, how do I put it? She is the one acted upon by a man, right? She's not the one initiating. She's not the one taking control. She's not the one who is, say, dominant in the situation, if you get what I'm saying. She is the one acted upon. She is the submissive in the situation. Now, if that's your thing, right, BDSM, submission and domination, and S&M and all that stuff, hey, teach your own. It's not my place to judge in that regard. But I just find it interesting that a man who's supposed to be about not sexualizing women and about female empowerment and expression of female empowerment through his characters decided to take a character and put her in a sex scene which sexualizes her, right? And then make her the submissive in the scene, the one who's acted upon. At least from what I can tell from the clip I saw, she just, again, bends over, right? He starts it. He grabs her hair. He's the one in control of the situation. I have nothing. I'm not opposed to that. You're right, as a general thing. A lot of that turns on a lot of women, frankly. A man taking control and taking initiative. A lot of women find that appealing. So I have no issue with it in that regard. It's just the hypocrisy of Neil Druckmann that gets under my skin, as it were. We're going to talk about female empowerment and not sexualizing women, but then you show a woman in a sex scene as a submissive, from the best I can tell, at least, from the clip I saw. So there's all that, right? And so yeah, that's what irks me, right? Though given what Naughty Dog and Sony have done, right? Given their censorship spree where they struck all different types of channels, stage reviews, Babyface, just some guy, RK Outpost, and many others, right? For just talking about it and giving negative opinions. So given all that, I cannot say I'm surprised that they decided to, or rather, Druckmann decided to sort of be a hypocrite, at least in my estimation, in this particular scene. That's just me. Now there's the third point. My third point is the difference between sexualization and objectification. Because, at least from my perspective, what a lot of people who are, I would say, of the ilk or of the opinion of people like Neil Druckmann or people like Nina Sarkeesian, is that they seem to be of the opinion that if a female character is traditionally feminine or beautiful in any way, or if she has traditionally fit, healthy, sensual figure, which guess what, many women actually do want and pursue in life. But if she's in any way traditionally beautiful, that this is somehow sexist or sexism or needless sexualization. Here's the thing, there's a difference between sexualization and objectification. First of all, sexualization is inherent to human nature. We are sexual beings. Sex is a part of nearly all our lives. It's how we create bonds. It's how we create families. It's how we create people, right? We work for sex. We live for sex. We die for sex. We build civilizations for sex, right? We're obsessed with it. And what else do you expect the species that needs to have sex to keep the population going to be? Right now, there's nothing wrong with sex and the preoccupation of it, so long as you go about it in a healthy manner. And of course, that's going to be different depending on who you are, where you are in life, what your status is in life, whether you're married or single or divorced or in love, out of love, whatever it is, right? And also, of course, your personal beliefs, your religious beliefs, how adherent you are to those beliefs, right? But if you pursue sexual activity, right, in a healthy manner, generally there isn't going to be too many problems, right? Sex is life affirming. Sex creates life. Sex creates and brings joy. It's of course, a very important and integral part of a romantic relationship, and especially in a marriage. We need sex. It's that simple. And there's nothing wrong with it so long as it's kept within its proper boundaries and barriers, right? So long as everybody respects the rules, as it were. But of course, because humans are humans, right, we are very good at taking things to the extreme and perverting them and creating this very dark element to it. Because we as humans have dark sides, so naturally everything that is a part of us, including our sex drives, has a dark side to it. And of course, if that dark side takes control, then of course things can go to hell. Right? There's adultery, there's unwanted pregnancies, various negative consequences to when you don't keep sex within its proper boundaries, right? So there's all that. But my point in all of this is that humans are humans and humans like sex. So in my opinion, so long as it fits the work and it makes sense and it's for the appropriate audience, right? For example, I wouldn't want this type of scene in some Disney film. It's totally inappropriate for that, right? But for an adult game made for adult players and viewers, got no problem with it. So sexualization to me is not inherently bad, so long as there's a intent and thoughtfulness to it. What frustrates me is this misunderstanding or perhaps a correlation that some have between sexualization and objectification. Now, can a character be objectified using sex? Yes, of course. You can think of, for example, sex slaves, right? A good one, say from Star Wars, is of course Princess Leia when she's taken by Jabba the Hutt, right? And we see how she's objectified because of the slave Leia costume, right? The gold bikini, right? But what sexualized her, what objectified her, in my opinion, was not that the bikini, right? The bikini sexualized her, right? It stripped her of her dignity as a princess, right? And that was the point. That was the point of it. It was using sex to objectify her by stripping her of her noble status and stripping her of her nobility, right? It wasn't the act of sex or finding her sexually desirable. Han obviously finds her sexually desirable. He's in love with her, right? So that isn't the issue. The issue is that sex in that particular outfit and what it represents was demeaning her. That was the point. She was a slave when she was taken by Jabba the Hutt. I'd also like to point out to people who complain about that scene that she also ends up killing Jabba the Hutt by using the very chains that he put on her wrist to choke him out. Just saying. But my point is that sexualization and objectification are always the same. Now, can sex be used to objectify someone? Yes, as I just explained. But there are plenty of instances where a person's objectified and there's no sex involved at all. For example, think of literal slaves, right? There were plenty of slaves who were not sex slaves. For example, there were slaves who worked in the fields, slaves who picked cotton. There were slaves who did domestic chores such as cleaning, making the beds, cooking, right? Those things are not inherently sexual, right? They're not sexual acts. But the people doing those acts were still objectified because they were not doing these acts willingly. They were not doing these acts as part of a business transaction. They were doing these acts because they were acquired as slaves. They were forced to. Regardless of what their own will was, they were treated as lesser. They were treated as even less than animals. Right? It was the dehumanization of the situation at hand that made slaves and that made them objectified. It wasn't the actual work they were doing that did that. It was everything surrounding why they were doing that work. And that is what objectified them, at least in my opinion. Right? Another good example, going to video games, is of course my favorite Adenian queen, Sindel, right? If you go with her classic Mortal Kombat 3 storyline, she is objectified. She's literally treated as an object by Shao Kahn, right? He doesn't resurrect her because, she left it in her will to be resurrected at a certain time, or because he's so desperately in love with her, this is her so much that he can't live without her. He doesn't resurrect her for Katana's benefit. It's nothing like that, which would still be selfish motives, but at least you can understand. But he doesn't do it for that. He does it because he resurrects her on Earth. He literally uses her as a pawn. He resurrects her on Earth according to the events of Mortal Kombat 3, so that with her being on Earth and her being alive on Earth, it gives him legal recourse, according to elder gods and all this stuff, to go claim his wife and basically start an invasion, right, without having to actually win a Mortal Kombat tournament, which is how you get the merger of the realms and heaven and hell, and this is how we start MK3 and Ultimate 3 and Trilogy and all those games, right? So he uses her as an object. There is no implication in these motives, in these stated motives, that he wants her sexually or that he's sleeping with her or wants to or anything. There's no sex, at least from what I can tell, involved in this. He's simply using her as a pawn, as a justification to be able to invade Earthrealm, because he can't win it through Mortal Kombat. Shang failed him twice. So there's another example of somebody being objectified without sex being an element of it, right? So sexualization and objectification are not one and the same. Now, sex can be used to objectify someone, yes, sex slaves, for example, but they are not inherently one and the same. Do we understand this? Are we good? Get it? Got it? Good. So there we go. Those are my thoughts on the sex scene, on Druckmann's hypocrisy, and the difference between sexualization and objectification. So that's all I pretty much have to say about it. Please let me know what you think, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a good day or night wherever you are. Be happy, be healthy, and please, especially with how crazy it is out there, because everybody thinks they're a revolutionary now. Be safe. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.